Hello, welcome everyone to this episode of Menopause Conversations. I'm thrilled to be able to bring to you today another fellow LinkedIner, John Quinton Barber. Hi, John, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
I don't know if that's quite the right phrase, a LinkedIner, but it is a new one. We've just made it up. But I'm really, really happy that you're here. So thank you so much for making time to speak to me, because it was that post. It's not that dress or that outfit, it was that post that got my attention some weeks ago, which was all about menopause and the work that you and your business Social are doing to raise awareness around that. So welcome, John, lovely to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Well, thank you, Amanda. I mean, I never thought a month ago that I'd be sat here on a podcast talking about the menopause, and we'll talk about these in a minute. I'm John Quinton Barber, as you said. I'm the founder of Social. We are a communications agency right across the UK. We're 55 people strong now. So we're still a small business, still classed as a small business. And we deliver marketing communications across various sectors, housing, regeneration, local authorities, kind of the boring PR, but we enjoy it. And people class it as boring PR, we don't. So we don't do like consumer, but we do a lot of B2B, which is great. So thank you for having me on. I mean, as I say, 4 weeks ago, I would have never dreamt to be sat here talking about the menopause.
No, so let's talk about that post, shall we? So, and it's fabulous because we wanted to have this conversation for all businesses, but particularly for small businesses. So tell us a little bit about that post and why you wrote it.
That post. So I do quite a lot of thought leadership. I'm really passionate about business and culture and supporting people. And my wife is, she's of a certain age now, so she is perimenopausal and she suffers badly with migraines. I mean, they really deliberate her. And I write my posts on a Saturday morning. I kind of schedule them for the week, but I do it all on a Saturday morning. And Dawn, my wife, that day was having a really bad episode with a migraine. And we at Social have got our own menopause policy, which was introduced by our staff engagement group, which includes men. And they discussed it, and they really wanted to introduce it because we're that kind of business where we look after people. And so it got me thinking, as Dawn was having a migraine, I wanted to blog about it because I read a Guardian article that said 1 million women have left work because of the menopause, and I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe that. I mean, how A, that's such a massive injustice, but B, as well, we're missing out on some real incredible talent because of something that women can't help. It's something that's just part and parcel of their life. And so I wrote this blog and I posted it 3 weeks ago, and the engagement's just been incredible, which is brilliant. It's not for me for kind of like a narcissistic point of view, because I don't do it for the likes. I generally do it because I think I have got opinions and I want to get them across. And just to give you the stats today, Amanda, that blog, which we're talking about, has got about 450,000 views across the world, about 4,500 likes, 500 shares, numerous comments. And what's really encouraging is it's gone around the world. So it's interesting how LinkedIn works and the algorithm. But after about a week after I posted it, it hit Australia. And clearly in Australia, they just don't really have the same kind of policies that we're trying to introduce in the UK. So there's lots of chatter from Australians and New Zealand, people in New Zealand. And if you look at the types of organisations that's viewed it, and I'm not going to mention them because of GDPR, but there's some multinationals that, and I'm talking about 300 or 400 people or thousands of people in one particular multinational, have read it, which is really encouraging. So, I'm glad I wrote it. I didn't realise the impact it would have because I write generally from the head and the heart. I'm a passionate guy when it comes to culture and workplace and the role that business has got to play in ensuring that we look after our colleagues.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And even since we last spoke, I mean, gosh, that's just gone, it's phenomenal, isn't it, really? I mean, and that's the thing, when you write a post that connects with people, that's where you get the traction. And it goes from there. And I find it really interesting that you talked about Australia, because ironically, Western Australia are currently the only producers of female testosterone, which is available in the UK.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that.
So your experience has been that they're maybe not so forthright with the policies and awareness. Is that right?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I've had, as you can imagine, quite a lot of private messages, including yourself, Manfred, reaching out for the podcast, which I'm grateful you've done. And I've had numerous messages from people around the world saying, A, thank you, and B, I wish my business did this. And I wouldn't say the majority of them are from Australasia, but there are quite a few from down under. So I don't know what is happening there, or maybe this is just kind of ignited something, but it's encouraging. I find it really encouraging that, a business like ours has been able to write about this and then elicit such a great response. It's also discouraging, or not the wrong word, it's also, there's still a lot of work to do, because some of the comments I've had from people, from women, obviously, who said, my business, I've got no idea. I wish they would all be like Social. And, we just go around sometimes in a little bubble thinking we're all like this because this is the way business should be. This is the 21st century.
Sadly, they're not all as good as you are, John. And, the whole thing is, what you're showcasing is you're never too small to have an employee engagement group, because that's the starting point in your story. I mean, was that something that organically came about, or is it something that's, you sort of saw elsewhere? I mean, what can you tell us about an employee engagement group for people that don't have one, and how do you set something like that up?
Well, 9 years ago this month we were born. So Social was founded in 2013. I always say in a recession, it was the tail end of a recession. And for the first 3 or 4 years, so anybody who's set up a business will understand this. The first 3 or 4 years is all about high fives and pizzas. It's like entrepreneurial. You're on it. You're buzzing. You're kind of
love that.
Well, you are, right? It is really kind of like, your adrenaline gets you through it. Then all of a sudden we hit £1 million turnover after about 4 years, and we went, oh my God, we need processes. Oh my God, we need HR. Oh my God, because you've got from a bunch of mates or a bunch of early adopters, you've now got a proper business. And so probably about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we introduced the colleague engagement group, which doesn't have me on it, which is great. I don't sit on it, I'm the founder, but we have another director who sits on it. But basically it's everyone we have about 10 colleagues, and the colleagues change every year, and they bring to that group everything about, what's been born out of that group is things like, obviously, the menopause at work. We now have 5 full paid volunteering days a year on top of 30 days annual leave. So we encourage colleagues to go out and volunteer in the community, because that does 2 things. It helps them develop their skills, but also it gives back to the local community. That came about because of the colleague engagement group. Our diversity policy, which I'll be honest, when I go back to the first 5 or 6 years, we were terrible. We just didn't have any diversity in the business. We were absolutely, and it wasn't conscious, and that sounds, a get out of jail card. It wasn't conscious. It was maybe clearly unconscious bias. So we've really worked on that, and this is all because we've got this engagement group. So we put a lot of things through that. A lot of challenge comes up from colleagues, and that's great, because I believe in that, because that can help the culture.
And that's so important. I'm reading a book, Servant Leadership, which I absolutely love. And it's that, in my mind, a great leader is someone who can listen and take the feedback, and their ego doesn't get involved. It's about being able to hear things because you're genuinely interested, and you want that open culture. So this is something that we know about menopause. Culture is really, really important. And to come back to your point that I'm in businesses, global businesses, every week talking about the menopause, but I think the reality is some people think, oh, grown, is it mental health version 2 now? The reality is that menopause is seen as just something else, we've got another hoop we've got to get through, or a box we've got to tick. But the reality is those cultures that do realise it is a workplace issue, not a women's issue, not an age issue, but it is a workplace issue that every woman, even if it's not your partner or your relative, there are women around you that are going to be experiencing it to some degree. So how do we change the culture, John? How do we get the culture right in the way that you appear to be doing?
I think just be more open about it. In my blog, in the intro, I talked about my mum. God bless her. And, I was growing up in a household where she was going through the change, that was the call of the change. And I always remember my mum's moods would be quite volatile sometimes, and she'd apologise all the time, and she'd cry and she'd apologise. And my dad, a big Yorkshireman, a quiet Yorkshireman, always used to put his arm around her. And, I had a great experience at home with that. And I suppose we just got to be more open about it. We are, thank God, more open about mental health, about sexuality, about diversity. This is part and parcel of that. We're human. We have one value at social, and it's really important. It's called life happens. And that's our one true value. And what that means is whatever happens to our colleagues in their lives, beyond their control, we've got their back. And that means some massive big ticket mental health things that maybe people have experienced in their lives, or physical health, right through to the small things like a pet's ill, or, I can't come in today because of the washing machine. But we put people on full pay and we look after them. And so for us, our menopause at work policy is this, that any woman who works at social, who'll be going through the menopause, who may be experiencing some detrimental effects. We know that not all women experience bad effects, but some do. They're looked after on full pay. It's without question. They don't have to justify to us, to me, why they're feeling rough. We trust them, and there's a big culture of trust there.
Yeah. I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? Although you say you have one value, I think it's underpinned by some fabulous other values, and trust is so important, isn't it? Because it annoys me intensely when I sort of hear people groan about menopause. The reality is women want to be at work, and more than wanting, we have to be at work. We are the gender pay gap sadly ensures that we need to be working longer, because we're not given that equality in terms of salaries. And so it's not nice to do, needing to come to work. It's an absolute facet of survival for so many women. You may know that as well, currently at the moment, I've got to get a bit of a rant in that there's not enough HRT available for the women that have been prescribed it. There are shortages. So I think it is really important that businesses do appreciate, to a large extent, the symptoms of menopause are quite hidden, aren't they? If someone breaks their leg, if someone has an accident, we see that quite visibly. So let's talk about the other part of this equation, which is the partners supporting menopausers, because I often have a concern that they tend to get left out of this conversation. And actually, I always say, if your wife's got a migraine, John, actually you're having to moderate your behaviour on some level. If your partner's not sleeping at night because of hot flashes and night sweats and anxiety, the person lying next to them invariably is not sleeping. So what do you think we can do to support partners more? Is there anything you're doing within your group? Because it's not just a women's issue.
I think education, Amanda, definitely. I think it's got to be education. I think my wife Dawn, I was very kind of sheepish about approaching it. I didn't want to say, are you going through perimenopause? Are you having, because it's that for me, that felt like it was an intrusion on her. In other words, bring up this. I'll be honest, it's quite a hard thing for me to broach that for her, because I didn't, but we did, and the migraines are potentially perimenopausal, and that's what she's experiencing. So I think it's more education. I think we don't. It's certainly my generation growing up, it was a taboo subject. I don't know about your household, Amanda, but when my mum said she was going through the change, that's all we knew. That was it. And it's almost like it was part and parcel. She had to get on with it, and she'd have to suffer for it. Now we just need to be more educated, and as partners, you're absolutely right. We have to, as we would if for any symptoms, illness or anything, we'd have to step in, support them, look after them, big arm around them, and just say, we understand, because we as blokes, we don't go through the physical symptoms, but we see our loved ones go through it, and so it's just being aware.
Yeah, absolutely. A good friend of mine, I was chatting to him yesterday, and I was saying, so what have I got to do to get more men to talk about menopause? I said, because I can't really imagine it's the first topic that trips off the tongue when we go for a pint. And he said, actually, you'd be surprised. And I was like, this is great. This is music to my ears. And I actually showed him a book, which is this book. Men,
Brilliant.
let's talk menopause by the wonderful Ruth Devlin, who's also going to be on this series at some stage.
Brilliant.
But the reality is, you're absolutely right. I think it's that fear. If partners can get over that fear, you know, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous, but you know, it's better to be that way. But
I have two daughters, one preteen, one teenage daughters, and they talk about one. My youngest talks about periods openly.
Brilliant.
And she looks at me as if to try and shock me. And I look back and go, "You're having a period? So what?"
Yeah, get over it.
Back in my day, two sisters growing up, never to be spoken about.
No.
Never to be mentioned. So I think it's just breaking them, what were taboos, just breaking it down. And you see, you know, going on to periods and sanitary towels, there's a lot of TV advertisement around that now, which is fantastic.
Yes.
I've been a judge of PR awards before, where I've judged entries which have been about campaigns to bring, you know, period pain and period poverty into the mainstream. Fantastic. Let's just talk about it. It's part and parcel of who we are, humans.
Definitely. And I think and when we talk about like reasonable adjustments, you know, it isn't just a fan on the desk, although that might be helpful for some people. It is about having that provision of sanitary products available, you know, somewhere where everyone knows where it is, you know, and actually very subtle things like taking breaks. You know, I don't think we do that so much. We've got into this slipstream of back-to-back meetings, Zoom, team calls, whatever systems you're using, but people don't get a chance to step away enough. And actually, we should be encouraging that for everybody, but particularly for those going through the menopause transition, because actually you need time to go and sort yourself out, you know, and actually knowing the mechanics of how a sanitary pad or a tampon works would help you understand it doesn't last all day. You know, you need to go and change those things. And I think it is that open conversation that people feel they can disclose. So tell me, what sort of things do you see yourself doing going forward then with your menopause journey yourself at Social, and health support? What sort of things can you see yourself doing in the future?
Well, we have, we've got about 55 colleagues and 60% are female. I daren't put a percentage on how many I think might be going through or premenopause. You know, I think certainly a minority at the moment. So probably 5 or 6 in the age bracket, 5, 6 female colleagues who are in that bracket. So we've got Diana, who's our menopause champion. And so she's known in the business to be the first point of call for anyone who wants to discuss it, who wants to find out more, who wants to really understand the policy. So Diana is our kind of like our champion. We've also provided GP access 24/7, so we're paid for that. So we've got like all the kind of like insurance and health products available for colleagues. So yeah, we've brought in quite a few things, and we've still got a lot more to do. I think the more we mature as a business, the more we have more women who are hitting that particular part of their life, the more we'll understand what else we need to do. But for now, we've got that kind of policy in place.
Yeah. And how difficult was it to do that? Because again, that's something that can feel like a bit of a roadblock for businesses, thinking, oh, a policy, where do I get one of those from, you know, anytime soon? How did you approach that as an organization?
A lot of research. So we did, first of all, a lot of research. We all watched the Davina McCall. So that's very famous, isn't it? So we watched the Davina McCall documentary. And then we did a lot of desktop research about what's best practice. And then one of the first things I spent my money on 9 years ago when I set the business up was HR advice and legal advice. So we've got a great outsourced HR company. So we turned to them and said, okay, what's best practice? Can you give us a guidance? Yeah. And what we always like to do at Social is put our own spin on it or put our own enhancements onto it. So it's not off the shelf. No. That's where we brought in the kind of the paid for 24/7 GP counselling service, which is, you know, part and parcel of that. But we talk about education a lot, Amantha, and I think education is important for our colleagues. So, you know, we may have a situation, we don't have it yet, but we will have a situation in the future where we may have a younger male line managing an older female who may be at one of the stages of menopause, and we need to make sure that younger male is comfortable and understands, and then the older female is also comfortable and understands that she can talk about it.
Definitely.
So that I think is the next stage of this journey.
Definitely, and that would be something I advocate as well, because once you've done the awareness phase, how do you keep it going? Well, that then goes into the training, the communication, because communication is absolutely fundamental here. It's not jumping to conclusions, but it's actually being receptive and, utilizing those opportunities when they present to actually either raise the topic or discuss the topic in a way that isn't uncomfortable for anybody, and that does take skill, definitely. So that's something I'm really keen to sort of help businesses with, which is that how do we train people to have those conversations? And actually it's not too dissimilar to a mental health conversation. So if people have got mental health first aiders in their organization, those people are skilled at listening, because that's the most important thing to do, and having those types of conversations. So that's brilliant. And I definitely like the life happens sentiment that you talk about. So so education is key. So some signposts here during our conversation for people possibly are things like that, there are an awful lot of things that women can do for themselves. Number one, reduce the stress. Stress really depletes the effectiveness of any hormone replacement therapy, HRT. So stress, sleep, looking at how your sleep habits are going, checking in with, are you relying too much on stimulants to keep you going through the days because you're already wired and tired? And exercise, as a team, sorts of things that you can do collectively. Exercise is really, really important for not only our well-being, but also how our hormones turn up for us. So there's so much that people can do. And I even say, let's look at the canteen. What foods are on offer to support menopausal women? Because, carbohydrates are not our friend as we go through the menopausal transition. Protein, lots of protein is really, really helpful, and good fat. So eating the Mediterranean diet. So, I don't know what the setup is for social, but certainly even for the bigger organizations, if you have caterers in, every port should really be having some awareness around actually what would benefit not only this group of people, but probably the wider population. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's brilliant, Amanda. I think you are the next level. You asked me a question there, how do you take it on? I think people like yourself are doing it. So I think, we've got, as I say, we haven't got a standard policy, we've got a policy which is ours. But what's the next level? So it's education. So you bring people like yourself into organisations.
Oh, yes, please, John. Yes, I didn't realise I was pitching, but that would be good.
but that's commitment, isn't it? Yeah. That's commitment, and that's demonstrating that we care. I'm really heartened as well, because I see a lot more businesses now, particularly small businesses, moving in the right direction. I don't know if you've come across B Corp, which is the standard.
Yes.
So B Corp is a standard which by businesses subscribe to look after people, planet, and the community, and obviously profit. We're about to become a B Corp organisation.
Wow.
There are hundreds in the UK now, and I imagine every single B Corp organisation, if you tapped on them on their shoulder and said, "Can I talk to you about menopause at work?" If they don't have a policy already, they'd be saying, "Yeah, come and chat." So there's a movement happening now where I think there's businesses are getting it, not just about menopause, which is important, but by other things, about looking after community and the planet.
Definitely. So I agree. So I think it isn't just enough to just do a one-stop shop. I think education is like anything, isn't it? It's about progression, and keep being curious, because actually this is a topic you could spend a whole year talking about, not just in October when Menopause Awareness Day comes around. And one thing that we must talk about, which is the elephant in the room, which is actually there could be a legal case to have a policy. We know that we've already got the task force, the menopause task force in government, who could, by the way, be doing a better job to support women currently going through the menopause. Just got to say that, because free prescriptions aren't available this year as we were promised, but it is coming for next year. One little signpost for people: if you are on HRT, do think about getting a prepaid prescription certificate, because that will save you a fortune every year already. So that's something that people can do to release themselves from the financial burden of paying for those prescriptions. But what do you think about employment tribunals? Is it something that businesses should be mindful of, either small, medium, large businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. It should be law. There should be. This is discrimination. A million women have left their jobs because of the menopause. Is discriminatory to me. It shouldn't be. businesses have to adapt, and we have to adapt quickly to this. So I do think, yeah, it should be law. What we're afraid of, this is about a business. We haven't talked about it much on this call, but the talent that we're losing.
Yes.
The talent, love working with women, love working with men, but the talent in my business are women, and that to be lost is, it's incredible. So we should be, we should be on the streets placarding this. This is I'm saying that not glibly. I'm saying that with passion, because this is something that just needs to be resolved. That women should come to work of a certain age who are going through the menopause, any stages, and not fear work, and not fear that they have to justify who they are or what they're going through. They just need a business to understand. And I do think public sector will be much different, or will be quicker at this, because I get that, I understand that. But private business, and as I said before, the number of views I had from multinational businesses was outstanding. And I think for me, I always say the small businesses will change the world. We can radically change the world. We are the engine of growth, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we should be, we're in the sweet spot.
Definitely. And so that's really lovely and appropriate that you mentioned that, because it is short-sighted if companies have invested all that money on boarding people, and then only for them to just leave, and I think there's something in that about the relationship throughout that transitional period, because let's not forget, menopause, perimenopause, which is that first stage, we could be talking about anyone over the age of 30.
Yeah.
So I always say to companies, John, know your numbers. And you sort of alluded to that before. You do know your numbers. And, when people say to me, well, actually, how much budget should we be putting behind this, Amantha? I say, let the numbers do the talking. Yeah. So actually, I've guesstimated on average, John, that it's about anywhere between 23 to 27% of every business's employee population. And that's just directly affected by menopause. That's not the people who are the partners of menopausers. Yeah. So I think, what do you think? What could we easily scale that up to? That could easily be 35, 40% of your employee population are affected by this, if we're going to adhere to the guidance that we've said, which is it's not just women, it's partners and men of those menopausers. So once you know your numbers, you realise the extent of the requirement, really, and it's crucial, isn't it?
It is, and when you put it like that, massive. And we are a service-led business, so we provide a service. So our clients as well, if you put that into our client space, our clients will be having the same percentages in their businesses. Yeah. And so for me, just the conversation just needs to continue. It started now. It has definitely started. It just needs to continue, and it just needs more people talking about it.
Definitely. So, John, as we sort of bring our chat, which I could just speak to you for ages, you're just so insightful and informative. What's your hope for the future when you think about the menopause conversation? What's your hope for the future?
My hope for the future is that it becomes law. That becomes something legally binding, which says, that businesses, I'm not saying businesses directly or intentionally discriminate because of the menopause, but businesses need to be far more in tune and have a policy and procedures in place to stop another million women walking out of the workplace because of the menopause. That's my hope for the future. I think we're, who knows, 5 to 10 years away from that. I think as the younger generation have the keys to businesses, they're going to get it. They're going to do it. I've got a lot of hope in the youth and the younger generation, certainly like my colleagues as well, about their views and opinions. So I do think it will happen, but it can't happen quick enough for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I was speaking to a global makeup brand last week, and lots of 20, 30 somethings. And the most wonderful, insightful energy I got from them was, this is actually going to affect me. I did not know this.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that light bulb moment, and I interviewed yesterday the wonderful Diane Dancerbrink. I don't know if you know Diane, but Diane is the lady that is responsible for menopause being on the national curriculum.
Oh, wow.
schools, and she is fabulous. And normally I wear my t-shirt that says hashtag make menopause matter.
Brilliant.
She's the lady that's done that. And
Oh,
to counter your proposal, I would love it that, yes, we have young people coming out of school, male, female, and those that identify across that transgender range,
yeah.
actually knowing that menopause is a thing and that we all need to be aware of it, looking out for one another, so that we stop this hushed tones, and that we can say things like vagina without, oh my God, everyone in the room cringing, and just for it to be more open. So yeah, I think that's a lovely thing to wish for. So John, tell people how they can be in touch with you, because I've got a feeling we're going to be seeing more blogs from you and
no.
so how can they be in touch with you?
So LinkedIn, it's John Quinton, Quinton-Barber, B-A-R-B-E-R, John Quinton Barber. I'm on LinkedIn there. Social.co.uk, very straightforward. That's our company. You can always reach out via social.co.uk or John Q Barber on Twitter. So 3 ways.
Brilliant. I'm very impressed that I'd have to read that off of a little piece of paper next to me. That was very slick, John. So John, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And yeah, thanks for blazing that trail for people to follow, because actually really there are no excuses. People like you are going public, giving people the crib sheet, effectively, how to do it. So thank you for being that pioneer on behalf of all menopauses. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, thank you for doing what you're doing.
You're very welcome.